This conference will now be recorded.
And so I'd like to welcome you to 2023 and hitting the ground running, going back and hitting a fundamental, important procedure to be using in the office on a regular basis, multiple times a day. And that is the new patient phone call. And, in a more abstract sense, every time the phone rings, and to be thinking about it and to make it ring more often with our ideal new patient calling to request an appointment. And so the new patient phone call is still a very important piece in running a successful chiropractic practice because it's the start of the relationship for still a large percentage of the people that we meet. And so, our existence or our business even, now going through a pandemic for 3 years, we should take great pride in having maintained probably the most human contact of pretty much anybody in, the USA for sure. And so this is part of that relationship, and it's why it's so important. And so I want to do it kind of in context, the way that I think about it. And, this is a picture of B.J. Palmer, who was the son of the discoverer of chiropractic. And chiropractic was discovered in 1895. And so BJ was a teenager and really dedicated his life to developing chiropractic. He was behind the start of the Palmer School, now Palmer College of Chiropractic, which is still the oldest chiropractic college and has the most lifetime graduates and was called the fountainhead of chiropractic. He also, BJ Palmer, was pretty much the developer of what we call chiropractic philosophy. And I'm going to share one of my favorite pieces. And so when we talk about chiropractic, we talk about it being three legs of a stool. It is a philosophy, science, and art. And so kind of why we do what we do and how we do it. And so in these trainings, I like to talk about that as well. And BJ was fundamental in basically creating and promoting the profession until his death in 1962. And so I was born in 1963, which was right after that night, his death in 1961. I was born in 63. And so having been grown up in chiropractic, I have kind of this long view history of it. And so back to the new patient phone call, right? Every time the phone rings, what I'd like to have you have in your head is the following mindset, right? And it's that of what we call in chiropractic the big idea. And so this was a piece developed by BJ Palmer. And to me, it is still a driving motivation to do the right thing at the right time over and over and over all day long in service to our patients and our community and ultimately society and the profession, and perhaps most importantly, even ourselves. And so the big idea goes something like this: a slip on a snowy sidewalk in the winter is a small thing. It happens to a million. A fall from a ladder in summer is a small thing. It happens to millions. A slip or fall produces a subluxation. The subluxation is a small thing. The subluxation produces pressure on the nerve. That pressure is a small thing. That pressure cuts off the flow of mental impulse. That decreased flowing is a small thing. That decreased flowing produces a diseased body and brain. That is a big thing to that man or person. Multiply that sick person by 1,000, and you control the physical and mental welfare of a city. Multiply that person by 10 million, and you shape the physical and mental destiny of a state. Multiply that person by 330 million, and you can forecast and prophesy the physical and mental status of a nation. So the slip or fall, the subluxation, pressure, flow of mental impulses, and disease are big enough to control the thoughts and actions to a nation. This man gives an adjustment. The adjustment is a small thing. The adjustment replaces the subluxation. That is a small thing. The adjusted subluxation releases the pressure upon the nerves. This is a small thing. The released pressure restores health to a man. That is a big thing to that person. Multiply that person by 1,000 and you step up the physical and mental welfare of a city. Multiply that person by 1,000,000 and you increase the efficiency of a state. Multiply that person by 130 or 330 million people, and you've produced a healthy, wealthy, and better race for prosperity. The big idea. So the adjustment of the subluxation to release pressure upon nerves, to restore mental impulse flow, to restore health is big enough to rebuild the thoughts and actions of the world. The idea that knows the cause, that can correct the cause of disease, is one of the biggest ideas known. Without it, nations fail, and with it, nation rises. The idea is the biggest one I know of, BJ. And so I share that just in terms of that's the overriding kind of motivation behind how we approach every activity. And it's why really working on our procedures can make all the difference. And so the question that I ask is, the people, this is back to now our new patients, the people that we're not getting, the number of new patients in our community that we're trying to serve, if they're not coming to see us, where are they going? And so oftentimes I hear the answer that they're going to other chiropractors, and I just want to point out that they're not. That the alternative basically for us finding the people that need us, that are the right fit for our practice, right? Our, a bigger growth of our ideal patients and servicing them. They're going to get drug, surgery, and other medical answers. And so, again, as an assignment, go to the nearest pharmacy. A, how far away is it? And the answer is not that far. And B, how many prescriptions are waiting to get picked up today randomly at that pharmacy nearest to your practice? And so generically, until you show me otherwise, that answer is probably in the hundreds, maybe 500. And so they're not going to other chiropractors. This is where they're going. And so with that in mind, we're going to hit the new patient phone call. And first, I just want to point out again that all of you should have access to chiropractic training. And these are the different trainings that are available to all of you. And so I would hope that this, in addition to whatever other materials that are available in your practice, that you get at least 1 hour a week of paid time to be able to do active training. And so if you don't have access and do want to have access, just send me an email with your first and last name and email address and what practice you're from, and I will add you into the system, and you will have your own, training out of a box. I produce a little quiz, as I said, for this training, and I'll try to do that for each of the CA trainings as we go along this year. And again, these classes will be the second Tuesday of every month at 1 o'clock. So here we go into our new patient phone call training. And one last piece. So your numbers that matter spreadsheet for 2023 should be set up. Your 2022 numbers should be entered. All of the prior years, January's last year, all the way through December's last year, monthly, as well as on the year-to-date tabs. Your personalized stats should be set up. And I would love it if you're not regularly already sending me your numbers that matter spreadsheet. At least send me your setup. Good to go. The first 10 days of 2023 are entered. Okay, here we go. New patient phone call. Ring, 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 right? And so bringing our mentality and really our mission to service our community, which is really a first issue, is to have this expectation that the phone is going to ring with a person making a request for an appointment. So we want to project that out. We want to attract that into the office. and oftentimes just getting, everybody revved up and telling the universe that we're ready to serve more people, it will generate more new patients, plus all the hard work we're going to do. And so every time the phone rings, here's an exercise. Every time the phone rings, right, to be thinking, the whole staff to be thinking like that's a prospective new patient. And the goal here is to answer the phone the right way at the right time, which is going to add a remarkable number of new patients to any practice. And so trying to go through, I identified like 13 different steps in this process. I think they're all important. And, trying to learn it is relatively simple. Applying it in the face of everything else that's going on in the practice all the time becomes the art of practicing. And so really committing to training on working on the phone call. And so the question becomes what's expected. And so if you went out and bought a new car and the service light came on in the first couple of months of ownership, and you were able to, safely get home, and you called your auto dealership, on what hours of what day would you expect a human to answer to be able to address your needs? And so think about this, I guess, both in the longer term, but like what's going on right now in terms of customer service. And so I want to point out that it's in every industry. I think customer service is even more at a premium, but it gives us an opportunity to really stand out, right? And I think that can create a competitive advantage as well. And so, being able to answer the phone during the right hours of the right days becomes super important. And so if you did have a health concern, if you end up having a toothache that had to be dealt with, what hours of which days would you hope to speak to a human to be able to schedule? And I guess, there's now two answers as, every day as we go on in terms of the internet. And so, do you have a way for people to schedule effectively via the internet and then have a similar experience that gets them into the office? And we're going to talk about that later in the class. But still, even with as many people that either want or do use the internet, we are going to have a large number of people that their relationship starts with an actual phone call, right? And so I want you to be able to answer the question. And at least from 8:30 to 6, Monday through Friday, it's 47 and a half hours. I'd like the phone to be answered by a trained person from the practice, right? And so the first question becomes is what percentage of these hours are you already answering the phone, or what percentage, and whatever the answer isn't, whatever hours you're not, that percentage I think that you're missing. And so, if you only answer the phone while you're actively seeing patients, and so anytime that, like lunch break every day, if the phone's not getting answered, it gives you an opportunity to have, a huge increase in the percentage of hours. So the goal would be at least 8:30 to 6. Again, if I was starting my new practice, I would personally answer my phone calls 24 hours a day. And so I would either call forward the office number to my cell, or I would outright be working to give my cell out to every patient and to have a two-way dialogue whenever they felt it was necessary, right? And so I would be answering 100% of my phone calls 24/7. But at least 8:30 to 6, Monday through Friday, I think that it's important to have a trained person answer the phone call, even if we end up hiring an hourly person to do some of those hours. All right. And so in the olden days, we were fond of calling it the bat phone. For those of you old enough to remember Batman from the 60s and 70s, right? This was the bat phone that connected him to the commissioner. And so having some official way of transferring the phone calls to, we ended up getting an office cell phone. And so we transfer the calls to that cell phone, as well as texting. And so this is how I would handle it. And again, we still have a large number of new patients that start with this phone relationship. I would have a conversation if I had an employee that was responsible for handling phone calls after hours of what the pay and bonus would be. And again, if I was starting my own practice, I would handle it personally. Mindset. Again, I think that it's critically important to have this, I guess I call it a marketing mindset, but it's an attraction mindset for new patients. And, really just living your life, we should be naturally attracting new patients as a result of who we are. And so certainly for any DC, but even for our CAs is, as you grow in your understanding of your role, and part of it is to be attracting people into the practice. And so with that mindset, we have this expectation that the phone is going to ring. And so we want to have a welcoming and concerned and inviting mindset, projecting out into the universe with an expectation that the phone is going to ring with with a person that we're going to have a positive relationship with and positively affect their lives. And so now the phone does ring. And so I want to get this second ring mentality throughout the practice. The goal here is to answer the phone on the second ring with a big smile, with a big expectation that it's a new patient, and being of service to the person calling. And so after the second ring, we want to answer the phone. We want to identify the office and ourselves and make an offer to help, right? Newman Chiropractic Center, this is Beth speaking. How can I help you? Right? And so again, this is a chance to give customer service and think about how many opportunities and how we're not treated like that. And so the patient says something like, I want to make an appointment to see the doctor. And so this is the first kind of, scripted answer that I want you to be thinking about. And I like to share my group experience at Buca di Beppo, which is a national Italian chain restaurant. And I would encourage you to go have a good time at Buca di Beppo. When you go in, they're going to ask you, have you ever been here before or not? And if you say no, then they give you a tour of the different rooms that they have, and they welcome you into the family. If they say yes, and they welcome you back and just take you to your table, which is fine as well. But the much better question, and the reason I tell the story, is when somebody requests an appointment. I'd like to make an appointment to see the doctor. The very best question to ask is, when was the last time you saw the doctor? Right? When was the last time you dined with us? And here's why that's the best question. There's three possibilities. One is, it's a current patient. And for those, we want to have an ongoing dialogue. And if, you're a new CA or a new team member and you answer and you don't know them, this gives you an opportunity to know that they're a regular patient and they've been coming. If they've been in the office before, but we haven't seen them in a while, if they're a former patient, they'll identify as that, and we'll have, that understanding of who we're speaking with. And if they say, I've never seen the doctor, then we know they're the new patient, the lifeblood of the practice, right? And so when was the last time you saw the doctor is the best question to start with when they make a request for an appointment. So they say they never have, and so they've identified themselves as a new patient. And now we want to go through what I've labeled the triple Dole alternative close. And so let's start, if we break that down, the Dole alternative means there's two choices, A or B, right? And so triple Dole is we're going to do that 3 different times. So when was the last time you saw the doctor? I've never seen the doctor. What would be better for you later today or tomorrow? morning or afternoon, 3 or 3:30. And so, the first kind of rule is to determine when does tomorrow start in terms of the time of day. So if somebody called at 3 o'clock, would we still offer them later today or tomorrow, or would we need to offer them Wednesday or Thursday? But ideally, we want to be able to offer either today or tomorrow and the next day. We want to provide two choices, right? If they insist that it has to be, 5 days from now or further, and, we hear that 3 times, then I might go ahead and schedule them. But the goal is to schedule them in the next couple of days. And so the 3 different times are today or tomorrow, morning or afternoon, 3 or 3:30, 3 or 5:30. And so the point here is to have your schedule set up, the appointment book, for where you want new patients. And so again, in a single provider office, the demand and the times, depending on how busy you are, will restrict how many new patients you might be able to have. But certainly if there's multiple docs that are seeing new patients, we can have an expanded kind of view on it. And, in my mind, having 20 new patients a week, 1,000 a year, should be in an achievable level if that's really what you wanted to develop. So we use the triple dual alternative close to get them to pick a day and time. And then we want to get their information, right? Can I get your full correct name? And you want to make sure that you're able to spell their name correctly. It's going to enter into all of our records. We want to make sure that that's accurate right from the beginning. For what condition are you consulting the doctor for, right? How have you heard about the office? If you're dealing with insurance, which most of us still are, right? Will you have insurance that we can verify for you? Or not? Will you have insurance that we can verify for you? And then this is still an important point. So every staff member should be well trained and be able to give directions to the office from any likable approach that somebody might be coming. And so if they're driving to your office and there's 2 ways to come, one from this part of town and one from the other part of town, right? Everybody should have a full understanding of that. If a lot of people use public transportation, you should be super familiar with that and be able to explain people generally from wherever they're coming from to zero them in to get to your practice, right? We are still a brick and mortar business. And so that becomes still important. Handling questions. And so in this, some people will end up having a bunch of different questions. And so I want you to be thinking about answering questions in a two-form way. One is to give the best direct generic answer to the specific question that was asked. That's part 1, right? And then part 2 is, and the skill in learning it is to do it without a pause, is to ask for the appointment. ABC, always be closing, right? And so, do you take my insurance? And so this is an issue. This is going to become an issue to practice. I think that every staff member should be trained to answer the question of, do you take my insurance? And where it's yes, to answer it with the appropriate yes answer, and where it's no, to answer with the appropriate no answer. And so this is a training issue that should happen in your office, and to be able to role play that question on a regular basis. But let's just take hours, for example. What are your hours? And so instead of going into the gory details of the 8 different shifts that you might have, right? We have available hours both in the morning and afternoon on most days. That's part A. Generic but accurate answer. What would be better for you, an appointment later today or tomorrow? Right? That's part B, ABC, always be closing. Does your doctor work with, low back pain, right? Lots of patients have gotten great results for that. What would be better for you later today or tomorrow? So it's a two-part answer of handling these questions, doing it without a pause, right? This is a mindset and practicing it all the time. It might not be natural. Somebody asks you a question, you just want to answer it. And it's not that we don't want to answer it. We want to give them the immediate generic answer, but then turn that into a request for an appointment. And so think about anytime somebody asks a question in your mind, part of that question is, and can I have an appointment? And to really be thinking about that and notice that you're doing that, it's an advanced mindset in the new patient phone call. Review the appointment with the patient. I have you in for tomorrow at 10 a.m. The doctor normally runs on time. What's your best email so that I can send you some paperwork so that'll save you some time in the office? So we wrap the benefit around the service, and then we have a way of actually sending them the paperwork. And in fact, as a brand new 2023 piece, is to be thinking about our new patient appointment funnel. And so almost to the point of from a phone call, even getting them to click on a link, which basically then we have the ability to craft whatever message that we want. And so there could be a video from the doctor. There could be testimonials. There could be online reviews. There could be case studies, and as well as confirming the day and time of the appointment and having that appointment, asking them to add that to their digital calendar, to their Google Calendar or whatever digital calendar that they use, that internally we send them emails and or texts that confirm the appointment leading up to, did they, make their day one appointment? And so if you have any kind of leakage here from people scheduling to showing up, this is a next level thought, the new patient funnel. I think it's important for everybody, actually. If they schedule outright from the internet, just a quick tangent here, again, they should go into that same funnel. It should be quick and easy to schedule from the internet, ideally being able to pick a specific date and time. And then they go into this appointment funnel where, from there they would go to a thank you page. And so there could be a video, testimonials, case stories, a request to put the appointment onto their schedule. And again, email and text go out, and even still phone confirmations could add an extra layer here. And so 9 out of 10 or more of our scheduled new patients should show up. I think that it is important to embrace role playing on multiple levels in our practices. This is one area. I think everyone should be well trained when the phone rings. Again, we're kind of still old school, and a high percentage of our relationships will still start on the phone call. And so having this mentality where we role play on a regular basis on this and many other things, and kind of making it a game in the office. So things to handle like the objections, the triple dual alternative close, getting the information, any objections with no pause, getting the information, and having everybody going back and forth, right? Just as an example, different types of calls. Do you treat whatever the symptom is? Do you accept XYZ insurance? Do you take work person's comp? My child was injured at school. Do you have that pro adjuster or whatever the new shiny thing is, right? Do you treat on the same day? Any questions that you get in the real world as you're doing these phone calls, you should write down. We're going to talk about being surprised, which still happens on a daily basis. But eventually you'll get this person, we'll call her Ruth, and she starts to go on and on and on and on. And so, how do you properly guide her, stop her, and get her scheduled, right? And so these are all areas to practice. Again, when we're surprised, I like to call it a lesson. And so I like typically how it happens is the call goes haywire, you don't know what happens, and you just say, okay, well, thank you very much, goodbye. And the phone call ends, right? And so when this happens, you should just take a deep breath and laugh because it happens to everybody on a frequent basis. And then just kind of take a second to figure out what happened and identify it and write it down even. If you do know what to do the next time, this is a learning experience. And if you don't, you should work with your office manager, your doc, and role play the situation of what happened so that the next time it's not a surprise and we learn from our lesson, right? That's the debug is as soon as possible. Even if the appointment was made, which, if we can share using the golden rule of treating others as how we'd want to be treated, which by far again extends any customer service in 2023, right? Oftentimes, not following the prior procedures, we can still make the appointment and I give you a big thumbs up. However, I think that we get a higher percentage of making more appointments by following the procedures, and that's why I offer them. So as I said, I created this quiz just to kind of, in not pretty format, but why is the new patient so important? What's the big idea? What hours of which days should we answer the phone? What should our mindset be? How should the phone be answered? What's the best question to ask after a request for an appointment? Explain the triple dual alternative close. Role play obtaining the information from the patient. How should all questions be answered? Role play reviewing the appointment. Outline your new patient appointment funnel. Role play, does the doctor take my insurance, and how can we learn from lessons? And so I'm going to make this prettier and attach it to the current presentation that'll be available online. But I think that if all staff member could go through this checklist and pretty much get it, that there would be significantly more new patients on a regular basis. So with that said, I'd like to see what was of value today and see if I can unmute you people, if I can figure that out somehow. Or maybe you're not even muted. So are there takeaways? How does it apply? What did you learn? What do you think about the new patient phone call? Can somebody say hi? There you go. Dr. Fenn?
Um, Obviously, the triple dual close is always a lot of fun, even though I never get the name right. And just, I think, making sure just that constant training to, all right, here's the answer. No, we're not in net with your insurance. That's a money question. Okay, our initial examination with your X-rays, if they're necessary, is 185. Best thing to do is get you in to see if we can help you. What's better, today or first thing tomorrow? And for us, we'd always say today or tomorrow, or morning or afternoon. But I think upping that to say, hey, we want to see what's better, this afternoon or tomorrow, getting him in the same day.
I agree. So having a definitive answer for how we handle that question is a great role play to be and to be thinking about. And so, the biggest answer is to, as we do our marketing, is to be attracting our ideal people. So money isn't an issue to them, and this issue can then shift and becomes much less prevalent. Anybody else have a takeaway, comment, question, or thought, or the benefit? All right, thanks for attending live. I'm going to end the recording.